Here in version 42, Order is defined as a supportive playstyle that improves your team. Obviously, that's meant for supports and support heroes, but what other cards are there that everybody else can use? Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a version 42 Paragon guide. I am Sylphin. We're going to take a look at the Order Affinity and really see what kind of cards we need to be aware of and what cards are key for certain heroes. So right off the bat, we start off with Lamp Lighter. It's a 300 gold consumable that's basically our Shadow Ward. It costs 300 gold and has 2 charges, so go out there. 150 gold per Shadow Ward. That seems pretty darn good. And honestly, 300 gold, pretty easy to come by with the new economy. So any Order hero, this pretty much is a must-have, absolutely must-have in your deck. Here is a really interesting sustain-focused tanky early game card. For only 1 vitality, which there's some pretty good gems in there for the early game as well, you gain a 20% chance to reduce basic damage taken by 50. By freaking 50, and that is a lot here in the early game, and that really slowly increases, and really it's all about attack speed here in version 42, with a little bit increasing in overall damage. Now 20% chance to reduce basic damage taken by 50, that is really solid. Essentially, in a way, when you average it out, it's basically a reduction in basic damage taken by 10 every attack, because if you average it out, that's every 5 attacks you'll have 1, so you'll have 1 that's reduced by 50, so if you average it out, it's basically 10 damage reduction every time you are hit, but it's 20% chance but by 50. I hope that makes sense. That seems pretty darn good. And you know what? If you are a melee offlaner especially, this can be really good value. Now, talking about the offlane, here is an interesting card you might want. For 1 agility, you can get Poised Aggressor. And in the one agility, there's some good gems in there as well for the offlane. Initiate. Gain 15 basic damage for 4 seconds after entering combat. So if you can, in the offlane, if you can commit to an engagement or help out your jungler that comes over to gank, you can get 15 basic damage for 4 seconds after entering combat. Remember, what this can also do is help you clear out those ranged minions and the siege minion when you kind of go in there. So if you can just kind of jump in there, take down the ranged minions, or even jump in there and help secure a gank or a little bit of damage, a little bit of burst damage on the enemy support or the enemy carry, this can go a long way, to be honest with you, and something you really got to take into consideration when you're doing your offlane Order decks. Now, here is Portal Stone. It's called Lightspeed Vanguard. For 3 knowledge, you gain 100 mana and the ability to teleport to an allied structure. For only 50 mana every 100 seconds, this is actually more important than you may or may not know, because hero levels are a little bit easier to come by. Death timers have increased throughout the match, so the ability to teleport to an allied structure is a little bit more valuable than you may think. Now, Circlet of Health hasn't gone anywhere here in version 42, and instead it's called Radiant Healer. For 3 knowledge, you gain 190 health. Definitely helps as a support, or any hero really that needs to absorb a little bit more damage. You and nearby allies gain 5 health regen. 5 health regen is much more than what it currently is. So for 3 knowledge, really good support card. You can go into knowledge just a little bit, able to pull this out and really help sustain in the early game. The early game laning phase has extended a little bit more, I would say, for sure, in version 42, so this might get some more extra value that you otherwise wouldn't think of. Now, this is one interesting card. that may be more valuable than you think. Vanguard Captain, 2 Vitality and 1 Knowledge. So not really too much of an investment in either Vitality or Knowledge to unlock this card. 7 Health Regen, and nearby allies block 4 damage from minions. So if you are a support, you can make your carry a little bit more tanky against those minions, meaning you guys can dive into the enemy hero and maybe not necessarily care as much if there is a minion wave. Minion waves hurt here in version 42, maybe a little bit more than they do previous. So this card is a really good idea if you really want to put the pain to the enemy offlaner. Now here is another must-have card for Order Heroes that is also a vision card. It's called Protective Sentry. For 2 Vitality and 2 Knowledge, a 4-point card, and that's not much of an investment at all. Gain 1 mana regen and place a shadow ward to reveal nearby enemies and grant 12 basic armor to nearby allies. So every 65 seconds, you can, for only 50 mana, you can put down a shadow ward. That is phenomenal what you can do here. The basic armor is going to go a long way, as there's much more basic armor coming out for pretty much everybody in version 42, and the shadow ward again is going to be much more valuable due to some stealth cards and the fact that there's less shadow wards in general. An absolute must-have for any Order hero. Now this one's really interesting. It's called Brilliant Fortification. For 1,000 gold and 4 knowledge, you gain 12 power, which is the first power we have seen here. So that is really valuable at only basically a 5-point cost. You also gain 1 mana regen, but all allied structures are immune to damage for 6 seconds. 75 mana and 90-second cooldown. So I find this really interesting. If you can basically be any Order hero, you know, off lane, wherever, but you can protect your structures if you see that they're going to go down, or if there's a big minion wave and that laner has died and you want to protect them against a push or something like that. This is a very, very, very interesting card indeed. So with those death timers increased a bit, a fair amount here, it's really interesting as it provides power for a little bit of the bruiser offlane Order heroes, or just any Order hero really. It's really something you have to consider. Now here is the first bruiser utility card in the Order Affinity. It's called Crippling Glare. For 3 Vitality and 4 Knowledge, you gain 14 attack speed and 24 basic armor. It goes a long way with all of that basic damage. You also, though, reduce enemy movement speed by 80%. 80%, and the effect fades over 4 freaking seconds, which is an absolute eternity. 75 mana and only a 40-second cooldown. This is really tremendous. As a bruiser Order jungler hero or offlaner, or a frontline support tank, this can really bring the pain to your enemies. Now here is an interesting minion-oriented card. It's called Flag Bearer. For 7 agility, you gain 29 attack speed and 2 passives. Nearby friendly minions gain 150 max health and 40 move speed, and you gain 25 basic damage when near an allied minion. So as a Wukong that's pushing down a lane, he can push it even faster, keep the minions alive, and make them move faster. This is really quite tremendous. So in the Order Affinity with a split pushing Wukong, or maybe even no, it wouldn't work on a Muriel with her global ultimate. This is really interesting on a Wukong. That 25 basic damage is going to be quite a bit of power, or the equivalent of power on Wukong with that attack speed is exactly what he needs. Now here is an amazing support card called Gates of Salvation. For 7 knowledge, you gain mana regen, 25 ability armor, help with all those ability burst damage, and you gain 2 passives. Heal nearby allies for 225 health every 45 seconds. It just keeps healing people every 45 seconds, and increase the frequency of the healing by 2% per attribute point purchase. So if you, in the end game, purchase 25 knowledge points, that means that you gain 50% cooldown reduction basically on the heal aura, meaning that you're healing nearby allies for 225 health every 22.5 seconds. That is phenomenal. Absolute must-have card for any support hero, in my opinion. Here is another super strong support card called Malinx Grace for 5 vitality and 2 knowledge, so maybe meant for a little bit more of a tanky sort of hero. Gain 455 health as it is done. You also gain an active. Shield yourself and a target ally for 15% of your maximum health for 3 seconds. So obviously, the more health you have, the more that shield is going to be. It costs 100 mana, and you can spend that every 45 seconds. So any order hero that you're building a little bit more tanky, even as a support, your support's going to need that vitality and knowledge. You can shield yourself and a target ally. Another absolutely must-have card for order support slash pseudo team support, Bruiser decks. We just can't stop it here with these amazing support cards. Another one called Malinx Prayer instead of Grace, which was the last one. So this is Malinx Prayer for 3 vitality and 4 knowledge. You gain 240 health and 24 basic armor. But every 80 seconds, you can spend 75 mana to heal nearby allies for even more, for 275 health. These healed allies gain 24 basic armor for 20 seconds. So basically, this is a barrier of will, but in an order card for 3 vitality and 4 knowledge. So again, another must-have order card, and also bruiser card. If you are a Aurora, for example, that really can use that knowledge and vitality, this can be great to shield yourself and nearby allies. You notice that there isn't, and it's not a team shield. It can stack with other shields and heals as well. It's not a shield. It can stack and heal and everything like that. So really strong must-have order card. Now, if you're wondering where Asher the Witch went, here it is. It's now called Stagnant Dominion. For 7 knowledge, you gain 16 power. That is a lot of power, and 1 mana regen. This time, ability damage slows enemy movement speed by 150 for 1 second with no cooldown. At least says here, with no cooldown. This works tremendously for Iggy and Scorch, for Gideon, for his ultimate, for Howitzer for his ultimate, for Gadget, for any large AoE ultimates. This works fantastically. Also just for Shinbi and for Iggy. This also works for really just anybody. Really, ability damage slows enemy move speed by 150 for 1 second. An absolutely amazing card here for a lot of heroes. Now here is an interesting card. It's called Yomi Spectre. For 7 knowledge, you gain 9 power and 190 health. The passive here is called Glowing Strikes. Dealing damage to an enemy reduces their ability armor by 12, and you gain true vision of the target for 10 seconds. So obviously, people like Iggy and Scorch could use that for the consistent damage and the turrets, and with that slow from the previous card, you can kind of combine those for people like even like Wraith, who can deal some damage and then gain vision, so he can snipe and deal improved damage. Somebody like Shinbi, who when she starts all of her damage, she can build her stacks, and then her ult does even more damage. People like that can really get a lot of value out of Yomi Spectre. So here is a card with tremendous potential. It's called Malinx Tribute. For 4 agility and 4 health, 4 vitality, you gain 15 power and 17 attack speed. That is a pretty tremendous amount of stats. But the passive is an overhealing shield. Gain a shield for any healing above maximum health. 20% maximum. So basically, this is in a way your own personal green buff that you can walk around with a little bit of lifesteal or healing from your support or other means. You have your own green buff. Yeah, that doesn't deal damage and reflect and explode, but at least you have just straight up 20% extra health. This on Order Bruisers is a phenomenal card that is absolutely mandatory. Now here's another interesting pseudo brawler bruiser order card. It's called March of the Malenk. Malenk is a big theme in these cards. Maybe there's some lore connections in there. So we have 6 agility and 2 vitality to gain 10 power and 26 attack speed. Again, there's that damage, so brawler bruiser. Because the passive is purifying strikes, basic attacks have 30% chance to remove a debuff from yourself, whether that be a slow, a burn, any sort of debuff that on you, a silence, stuff like that. You can have a chance to remove that. So if you are any hero that just needs to do their thing and is trying to be a bit of a damage dealer but also a brawler bruiser, this is a good card to have. This is a card that might blow your mind. 2 vitality, 9 knowledge to get Domain of Stillness. 16 power, 230 mana, meaning for me it's kind of meant for a knowledge sort of damage dealer. What it does though is that it stasis yourself and all nearby heroes, enemy or friendly, for 2.5 seconds. Every 90 seconds you can spend 100 mana to do this, and the implications are insane. You can be somebody like an Aurora that jumps in there, group stasis the entire enemy team while your team comes in to get into position or just kind of help give some time to rotate. Then you use your ultimate, or use your ultimate first, and then once that last explosion goes off, you can group stasis, or you can group stasis everybody after a Gideon ultimate. The implications are insane. This group stasis, it's up to your imagination what you can use it for, and you need to be aware of this. Song of the Sentinel is one of the more interesting cards we have seen yet. For 5 agility, 3 vitality, and 3 knowledge, so a little bit of everything, you get 290 health, 170 mana, but nearby allies gain 22 attack speed and 18 basic armor. What this is for is obviously empowering the rest of your team, and you are getting health and mana. This kind of leads me to have this card as sort of like a melee tank sort of a card. So perhaps a Rampage or maybe a Richter can just kind of just be there, give attack speed to his allies, 18 basic armor. He can get the mana for the great cards, 290 health to just make him more tanky, because he can definitely use the knowledge, vitality, and maybe some agility as well. Really some interesting implications here. Let me know down in the comments what you would see Song of the Sentinel used for. Now here is a monstrous card. Sacred Alchemy. 8 agility, 4 health. You gain 4 vitality, 8 agility, 4 vitality, 18 power, 20 attack speed, and 240 health to gain shielding strikes. Gain shield equal to 20% of basic damage dealt. Can you imagine this card on any brawler hero, frontline damage dealer that gets great value out of the power, the attack speed, the health, and is constantly gaining shield? On a Kwang, on a Grux, on a Feng Mao, on a Greystone, this sounds absolutely amazing. Even on a freaking Wukong, this sounds amazing, because they can just continuously get that shield, that 20% of the basic damage, to keep feeding into their sustain, which equals more damage, which equals more shield. Oh, an absolutely mandatory card on any Order Brawler Bruiser. Now here is another absolutely great support card for Brawler Bruiser heroes. It's called Yomi Guardian. For 3 agility and 9 vitality, gain 12 power, 300 health, 36 basic armor, and get an active called Area Defense. Nearby allied units, including minions, gain 100% chance to block 50 basic damage for 8 seconds. 80 mana, 80-second cooldown. Can you imagine using this card in a siege, diving into a tower? You straight up get minions, allied heroes, 100% chance to block 50 basic damage from towers, from carries, from anybody dealing basic damage. Absolutely tremendous. This is just monstrous. It'll even work on it'll even work on raptors. Yomi Guardian, fantastic order card for Brawler Bruiser heroes. Now, if you're wondering where the heck are all the tank cards, here it is. Godmother Vigilant, 13 vitality to gain 15 power, 565 health, and 2 passives that feed off each other. Increase your maximum health by 15% straight away, and increase the maximum health further by 1% per attribute point purchased. If you max out your vitality, that's 25% increased health, plus the 15 is 40% increased health. With 565 on the card itself, can you imagine this card on a Savarog being able to get nearly whatever that is, 2,400, almost 3,000 health by himself? Never mind an additional 40% and the 565 on this card and other cards. This is phenomenal on any strictly tank heroes. Now for a card on the opposite spectrum in the Order Affinity. Here is Knight of Asher. For 13 agility, this is a straight up damage card. 19 power, 14 attack speed, 24 basic armor to help you kind of bruise with, just survive against other high damage heroes. You gain 25 basic damage straight up. But the more agility you put in, you also increase basic damage by 1.5 per agility attribute point purchased. This means you can gain 62.5 basic damage increase through Knight of the Asher alone. Never mind the 19 power getting fed into your basic attacks. So Knight of the Asher on a Wukong that we've kind of mentioned before already. Can you imagine a Wukong with the previous minion card and Knight of the Asher? Straight up unstoppable in lane, trying to take him out 1v1 with his minion wave. Oh my goodness. If you are an order carry, this card absolutely mandatory. And here we are back at the beginning. Order guys, really cool Affinity that obviously has a ton of support cards, but also some very other interesting cards as well. Great utility, great vision, and with a few consumables, with some good utility through our allied structure, teleport. Really interesting. Obviously, very much meant for a support, but also a lot of the offlaners seem to be able to utilize this very well. So very much consider here using Order Affinity on your support heroes and on your offlane heroes. Really, anybody else could too. There's some good jungle options, or some things that work with some jungle type heroes. Really guys, Order is a fantastic affinity that I think is probably going to be underestimated a bit until some people kind of see just how awesome it is. Let me know down in the comments if there's anything I have forgotten, if there's any oversights, if there's any clear synergies that you're just like, Sylphin, come on, man, you missed it. Let me know down in the comments so that other people can learn and so that I can learn as well. I would really, really appreciate that, and I hope you guys enjoy. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, and of course, guys, subscribe. You guys like this content, especially if you found it useful. Please subscribe so I can do it for you in the future. If you would like to support me on a regular basis, please head on over to my Patreon account where you can make a pledge to help me do what I love. Till next time, like always, guys, stay optimistic and positive.